Hello everyone, and welcome back to the MSSU Summer Show. I'm your host, Scott Humphreys, and today with me, I have Dr. Charlo, the head of the Performing Arts Department. Thank you for being here with me today. So, what made you want to major in music and teach it?
Yeah, I think the initial thing that got me into music education was the act of conducting, and I always wanted to be a conductor ever since I was probably in junior high, and so that was sort of the route to be able to get in front of a group, and so then I knew immediately when I graduated from high school that that's what I wanted to do, and of course auditioned and went to college and started that career, which has been, I think, rewarding. I think this is my 32nd year of teaching, and I've taught high school, a little bit of middle school, and then college for the most of the time. 12 years of high school, so pretty good time in the sort of the trenches, if you will.
Yeah, I always like conducting just because it's, I don't know, for me it's just fun. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
For me it's fun. I know I'm not doing it mostly correct, but it's just fun to do. So walk us through like a music education degree. What are the most important classes and
Sure.
projects students work on?
Yeah, so a music ed degree is probably the most intense degree on campus, and it's the most hours, and that's because you are getting basically a full music degree. As a musician, you have to be a proficient musician, and musicianship, building that and increasing your abilities takes time. And so a person who is doing music education will basically get a music degree and then the education degree. And so that's about 140 hours at most universities. Some universities will, for example, have the credits be 1 credit, but they're still going to be meeting a couple times a week. And so their degree may perhaps look like less hours, but here I try to make sure that we equate the number of credits with the number of hours that they meet in the academic classes, because and a lot of universities do that as well. And so regardless of how it's sort of equated, your degree is in music ed, anywhere you go, is going to be quite intensive and probably the most hours on campus. You got to have the theory you got to have the conducting, you've got to have the history, you have to have the applied and be able to, if you're an instrumentalist, be proficient on your instrument. If you're a vocalist, be a proficient vocalist. And again, that takes about, usually, we try to squeeze it into 4 years on paper, but usually most music ed degrees are going to take you about 5 years to complete. Certainly when I was an undergrad many years ago, that was the case for me as well.
So I mentioned, I had you walk us through the music education, but I'm assuming that's the most popular degree, but what are all the career paths you can take just going into music?
Right. So, a person, for example, going into music ed to start off there was probably inspired by their high school music teacher, or at least their middle school, junior high music teacher. I certainly was inspired by my high school music teacher. I was like, oh, this is what I want to do. I love the conducting, as I said. I love that ability to lead a group, and admired that, in him, and so I chose that. So most music ed people are going to do that. Now, the others who choose perhaps music performance, they too were probably inspired by their former music ed teacher, in high school, but they choose to maybe perform. So that may be a variety of places. as if you're going to do a music performance degree, probably what's going to happen is not only will you be performing on stage and with ensembles and in a professional sense, but probably what you'll do is go on to do a master's and a doctorate and then teach privately. And so that you'll have a studio that you teach privately, but then you also have other performances that you'll be hired on a professional basis. The other paths we have, of course, are industry. So people who would like to maybe get into the recording industry or get into advertisement in recording industry, that sort of thing. So we have the industry degree. We also have, very happy that we got this started a couple years ago, a Bachelor of Music with an emphasis in elective studies. So someone who perhaps has an interest in specifically business, or someone who might have an interest specifically in psychology, may choose a Bachelor of Music and then add that emphasis, about 20 hours in that emphasis. So for example, if you wanted to become a music therapist, as long as you have a Bachelor of Music degree, you can go on to pursue that music therapy degree in a master's to be certified. But you might choose here at Southern, for example, the Bachelor of Music in Elective Studies, and then do that elective studies either in health sciences or like psychology, for example. So many different options, really. The music performance may have their private studio, but then they may, as I said, go on and teach college and have a private studio there. So there's lots of opportunities, and I'm really happy with the degrees we have here, especially when you consider the music industry degree and the elective studies, that there's several options for those who maybe do not want to teach and maybe who do not want to perform.
So, I mean, that's great that it has several different outlets, because it gives people who are not only interested in music, it gives them something else other than just, you can perform or you can teach. That's it. It gives them I like music, but I want to do this, or it gives you a broad thing like music therapy. You want to help people, but at the same time, you want to be involved in music. So I think that's good that you can do both. And
right, exactly. And again, I think the elective studies, what's nice about that is that somebody can come in and sort of design their degree, because the elective studies, they have a lot of leeway in being able to decide, what can I pair with this? So, we may come up with ideas, but they may have a better idea of like, well, if I do this and do that, then I can maybe do this. And so that gives them the chance to be quite choosy and selective, and will meet their own personal needs.
So, do you feel the musical arts are seen as more or less important now, or compared to where they used to be?
Well, I think I would preface to say that COVID, the last couple of years, has really hurt the arts. And I think too, for a while there was also hurting, for example, athletics, because there couldn't be that chance to observe a game or a production. And so we had a lot of people that may have come to college at that time, but decided not to, in terms of, am I going to be, is this degree going to be worth it? Because it seemed like, the sky was falling at the time. That said, there has definitely been a resurgence, right, since COVID is hopefully, waning away. Probably never go away, but at least maybe in the sense that it's going to be containable. And so with that, people are hungry for entertainment. And so do I think, as we look at now, the arts. Probably the arts maybe are going to become even more important because anytime there has been any catastrophic event, the arts have always flourished out of that catastrophic event. So I think we're going to probably see a resurgence and probably even more interest in the performing arts because of that. Out of bad comes good. So I think we're going to see more energy, perhaps more funding, at least I'm hoping, in that sense.
I personally think you're very right, just because at least in my standpoint, music has always been just a good outlet. It takes away from the world. Mm-hmm. I did a lot of musicals, and when I would do musicals, it gets you out of the current world, and you're not thinking about it. You're not thinking about current. You're not thinking about current problems, whether it be financial, physical, relationship. Right. You're not thinking about them. It's just you're surrounded. So I think you're very right. As things are coming back to normal, people are gonna resurge or go back into that of they just want to be surrounded. So real quick, before we go, can non-music majors join do the musicals and choirs?
Yeah, absolutely. I know from my own experience as a performer, as a student back in the day, and then of course now as a longtime educator, that we want our ensembles, if you will, whether they're music or acting, for example, in a play or a musical. We want our ensemble filled with not just majors, but non-majors as well, because the performing arts, music, theater, for example, people can do that well past, being able to perhaps run a marathon or play football or basketball or whatever. And they can carry that with them. So having those involved is really important. When you consider somebody not majoring in music, but is in our music ensembles, they may go on to become a business person and then be able to financially support the arts, and because of their love of the arts. We have scholarships available for both majors and non-majors to perform in our ensembles. And to be in our shows. For example, music theater, and I forgot to mention the music theater degree, which is thriving here at Southern. We want, and we have certificates, people can get, for example, in music theater. So perhaps they want to be a criminal justice major. They might want to put on a certificate to do musical theater and be able to get that, and then be able to be in our productions. So that was a long-winded way of saying absolutely.
Perfect. So I would like to thank you once again for being here with me today. And if any of you at home would like to know more about the performing arts, simply Google the MSSU page, and you'll find all the answers you're looking for there. Stay tuned, because up next we talk to Dr. Robinson, about the director of bands, about all things instrumental.
Missouri Southern State University Department of Communication, where information and experience opens doors you can never imagine. The mission of the department is to investigate, create, and spread information to a global public using a wide variety of communication and media channels. We prepare you for your future with hands-on opportunities using high-quality equipment and a fun learning environment. Allow us to be a part of your journey here at Missouri Southern State University, where connections will last you a lifetime.
All right, welcome back, everyone, to the MSSU Summer Show. Today, here with me today, I have Dr. Robinson, the director of bands. He handles all things orchestra to marching band to, if it's a musical instrument, he's got it. So thank you for being with me here today.
Absolutely.
So the first thing I want to ask is, what got you interested in music, and not only just interested, but what made you want to both major in it and teach it?
Sure. Well, from a young age, in elementary school, I participated in church choir and was, in played recorder in my school elementary music classes, and dabbled a little bit on piano. And both my brother and I were, kind of very involved in music at a real early age. So when we had an opportunity to join band in seventh grade, it was a natural, fit for us because we had already kind of dabbled a little bit in singing and other things, and we were real interested in instrumental music. So we got in our junior high band program, excelled in junior high, and got in the high school band program, and we started taking private lessons, and it was kind of one of those things that we really enjoyed doing, and we started excelling at it. So I thought maybe I need to think a little more seriously about this. Growing up, I played sports, specifically tennis and baseball, as I got older, and I knew that I wasn't going to have much of a career in those two things, but I felt like musically, music was something that not only was I felt like I was good at, but it was something that I could possibly do once I left high school. So I started, like I said, taking private lessons, and took lessons with with the instructor over at Arkansas State University. Met a lot of the faculty over there, and built some relationships, and was offered a scholarship to go there. And so it was something that just kind of seemed like a natural fit. It was an interest, and it was something that I had done well in. And it just, by the time I got to be a junior in high school, honestly, there wasn't really anything else that I wanted to do except be a music major. So I know some people, have lots of different interests, and they're trying to figure out what they're going to do. Like when I talk to students that are thinking about coming to Southern and talk to them about being a music major, or have other interests, a lot of times they'll have several things that they want to do. And honestly, it's hard for me to relate to that because I've always wanted to do music, and that's, that was kind of decided at a very early age. So I love it. Still love it. So that's kind of where I got my start, and why I wanted to be a music major.
Oh, very nice. So is music just one of those things that makes you feel, it not only brings like a happiness, but just almost calms yourself? For me, music is just something that it's just almost calming to do. It's just, I go, and even though I'm not great at playing piano, I go and I just play something on the piano. It's just nice. It takes you away from everything, and you kind of just seclude yourself almost. It's just a very nice, surreal thing to do. So is that what it's like for you?
Yeah, well, in some cases, I will say, I think regardless of what job you have, I think it's important to have outlets there, that where you are thinking about other things than your typical, your quote unquote 9 to 5, job. Although our job is not a 9 to 5 job. But for me, like, I've recently traveled, so I will put on headphones, and when I get on the plane, I put on something that relaxes me. I usually will listen to Beethoven symphonies or something along those lines, something that can just kind of relax me, or maybe some Chopin piano music. But one of the things that I really enjoy doing is listening to jazz, and it's hard for me just to sit back and listen to jazz without really getting into it, enjoying it, and wanting to be involved in it. So, whereas I may put Chopin on to relax for background music, if I put jazz or something that I enjoy playing, I don't really sit back and just kind of relax to that. It's something that I want to be in, like, very active in and involved in. So for me, it depends on the genre of music that I'm listening to.
So walk us through just a music education degree, because go from anywhere from like the kind of most popular classes, the classes that you're doing the most in, to the most important projects students go through?
Sure. Now, as a non-major, you would take things like music appreciation or different classes that would count for that credit, so you would get that music credit. If you're going to be a music major, we go into a lot more detail. So it would be, you would obviously take things that we would go into a lot more detail than you would for a specific like appreciation class. So to be a music major, you have to be proficient, obviously, on your instrument. So whether you're a singer or whether you're an instrumentalist, piano player, trumpet, tuba, whatever your instrument is, you would study privately on that instrument. So you would each semester you would play juries, and you're going to have recitals, and eventually you will get to your senior recital, which there's a requirement there where you kind of build up to that big senior recital where you play a concert by yourself. So not only do you study privately on your instrument, but other requirements, just like other majors, we have specific requirements for music majors. So we study music theory, which is kind of the nuts and bolts behind how and why we do certain things musically. The history of music. So you have to take a history sequence that kind of teaches us where it started and where it's kind of gone through, the different decades of music. And so you've got theory, you've got history, and then you also take a variety of music education courses. So there's methods courses that kind of help teach you about being a music teacher or being a band director, being a choir director. In my case, I mentor instrumental music education majors. And so you have to take classes on how to teach saxophone, how to teach trumpet, how to teach all the different instruments throughout the band program. There's also classes on kind of about being a band director, being a choir director. So it gives you a little bit of detail not only about the actual instruments, but it goes into things like dealing with budgets, dealing with how to put a program together. What kinds of things do you think about? Band parent organizations. So like it goes above and beyond just what you would do on the podium teaching your students, but there's as a teacher, you wear a lot of different hats. And so we try to train you, whether it be on your instrument, whether it be music history, music theory, or in your methods courses, give you a little bit of everything. So once you get out, you kind of have this eclectic, degree to where because you do wear lots of different hats, you've got to be kind of proficient in all these different areas. So it's time consuming, just like most other degrees. There's lots of things you have to do. You have to not only take those courses, but be very active in ensembles. You need to get those experiences because you're going to be teaching those ensembles, when you get out. So there are a lot of different things that you take as a music major, but we like to keep our students busy. And what we hear typically is when they're in the grind day to day, they realize they're super busy. When they get out and start teaching, I get those phone calls back and say, man, I'm glad I had to take this class, or I'm glad I had to do this because now I'm teaching jazz, or now I'm having to be a part of this program, I'm having to be a part of this. And so it kind of comes full circle at that point once they get out and start doing it.
Very nice. So what are all the career paths you can take with more of an instrumental music degree? Like we have music education, but I assume there's like a very broad, bigger picture that you can take.
Sure. So, there's really kind of two schools of thought. You could be a music education major, or you could be a performance major. Those are kind of the two areas that we that we look at. For the most part, our university is a teaching school. Most of the students that would come to Southern want to be a future music teacher. Now, you don't necessarily have to have a music education degree to teach, However, and this kind of gets into, people's philosophies and what they believe. You can perform um, with either degree. You can only teach with a music education degree. Okay. Now you can teach. You can have a private studio. You can teach lessons. You can do those kinds of things. But if you want to be a band director or a elementary music teacher, you have to have that education degree, or you have to have the equivalent to that. So, like there are some certifications and things you can get. Say you have a music degree, like a performance degree, you still have to get those ed certifications to be able to teach. Which is one of the reasons why we suggest, if you want to teach, you need to get the education degree. Now, if you are a performer and that's what you want to do, if you want to perform for a living and you want to have like a studio, whether it be maybe eventually you want to be a college teacher, or you want to have like a studio of you want to teach private lessons, then you certainly can get a performance degree and focus on that route. Or if you are wanting to go on to get a master's degree right after your bachelor's degree, certainly you could get a performance degree and then maybe go on and get your master's in education, if that's the route you wanted to go. But basically there's two schools of thought there. You can get a performance degree or you can get an education degree, or kind of the big overarching things that you can do with music.
Which I mean, to me is very nice, because it narrows it down a little bit.
Sure.
We have to decide a few things, and it was some majors. Like I'm a computer science major. There's so many. They're like, you have computers, but there's so many networks. It's like, oh, you like this, you have to do this. You like this, you got to do that. And there's so many. It's just overwhelming, because it's like, well, I don't know what I like. And so for me, that's at least nice, because it narrows it down. And it's like, okay, I either get to teach or I perform.
Well, and typically, I mean, there are, like, we do have some other certifications. There's a music industry, which is something that we're kind of bringing around. So if you're interested in the industry side of music, that's kind of a certification. One of the things that we've kind of added here recently is you can get these little certifications, even being, whether it be performance or education. On top of that, you can get these certifications that give you a little bit of extra expertise in a specific area, but you're still under that big umbrella of performance or education, which makes it a little bit easier to kind of maneuver. And typically with a bachelor's degree, your degree is going to be a little more broad anyway, regardless of what field you're in. Then as you decide, okay, I want to go to graduate school for your master's degree, rather than having all of these, rather than, you've got core classes that you take, but you've also got like biology and science and your physical science, or you've got math and all those things. For your master's degree, it's a much more specific course that you would take. So it would be, your course load would be, for example, for computer science, if you're wanting to go into that, you're not going to take a lot of extra stuff. There's not a lot of extra. It's going to be specifically geared toward that major. And same thing for like music education or music performance. You would focus specifically on taking courses that would give you that. So it kind of starts very broad, and then as you kind of work your way up, it gets a lot more specific.
Very nice. Well, I would like to thank you for being here with me today. If anyone would like to know more about our music department and what everything they have to offer, simply just visit the department page, and I'm sure you'll find whatever you're looking for. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We'll see you next time.